Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. This is the home of muscular Christianity on Conservative Talk Radio, not the home of feminized, politically correct Christianity, and for that we make no apologies. I make no apologies. Now, one quick notice before we go to some sound bites. This is tremendously encouraging news. Iceland is on the verge of banning pornography in their country. 320,000 people live there, and their legislature, their Congress, their parliament, whatever they call it there, their government is drafting plans, according to the Associated Press, to ban pornography in print and online in an attempt to protect children from a tide of violent sexual imagery, because they want to shelter children from serious harm. They know that child porn generates assaults on children. And we are learning that adult porn generates sexual assaults on women. So both children and women are harmed by this unrestricted circulation of pornography. And Iceland getting ready to do something about it, looking at installing filters and so forth that would restrict access to online pornography and ban it in print version as well. Now, you've got this sequester business going on. We talked about this some yesterday, so I don't want to revisit this. But I mentioned that President Obama's paycheck is going to be exempt from the sequester, which means he has absolutely no skin in the game. It's not going to affect him one way or another. And I think the reality is, let's play the Charles Krauthammer clip number 6. And we play this clip, and you hear what Charles Krauthammer has to say. And I think he's dead on the money here. He's just absolutely dead on the money. And I'll come back with an analogy to help you understand what I think is going on with the sequester. Here's Charles Krauthammer talking about the worst-case scenario for President Obama and the hysterical sky-is-falling liberals. Let's listen.
What we're talking about here is 2 cents on the dollar. Every dollar the government spends today, 35 cents is borrowed from the Chinese and others. What's going on here is ending up in a position where we borrow not 35, but 33 cents. And that is going to bring Armageddon. An example of the cynicism of this campaign is one lobbyist for liberal causes leading 3,000 organizations in opposing the cuts, who told the Washington Post the following: the worst case scenario is the sequester hits and nothing really bad happens. Think of the cynicism of that. The worst case scenario is that the government makes a minuscule cut in spending on the way to the beginning of a journey of recovery into fiscal health, and that it doesn't hurt us. We actually come out of it alive. And that, to them, is a worst case. It means, think of how they are weighing the national interest, which needs a cut in spending, and these parochial special interests.
So Charles Krauthammer is exactly right here. The worst case scenario, and they're open about it. I mean, this is a lobbyist that told the Washington Post the worst case scenario is the sequester hits and nothing bad happens. Now, notice that would be good for America, but it would be bad for liberals. In other words, think how upside down their world is and their values are. And I've told you, nothing bad is going to happen with this sequester. Nothing bad is going to happen. Now, the administration, they're releasing illegal aliens. They're criminals. They've broken our immigration laws. And the Obama administration is releasing them to the public, saying we can't afford to have them. The sequester hasn't even hit yet. The sequester has not even hit yet. But they're saying we're afraid it might, so we're going to go ahead and release these criminals back into society because of the sequester, because of the wascally Republicans, even though this was President Obama's idea. And this is good for the country. It's just a modest, it's extremely modest, 2 cents on the dollar. Krauthammer says we're still borrowing the money. We're going to borrow 33 cents for every dollar we spend instead of 35. That's the only difference. It's a nothing burger. And remember, we talked about this. We got a 2% pay cut, every single one of us, January 1. We had to live with 2% less. Now, this is about a 2.4% reduction in the spending growth, and it's like the end of the world. It's cataclysmic. We can't bear this. It's the end of the world, where you and we have been making do with the same reduction in income since January 1. We've done it without complaint, and nobody's showing any compassion for us. President Obama isn't out there wringing his hands about what a horrible thing is that the American people are going through and how will they survive and it's the end of civilization as we know it. No, they just expect us to suck it up and deal with it, and we are. We're finding a way to cope with it. But this is what Krauthammer says, look, this is what is so bad about the liberal rhetoric on the sequester is that the worst case scenario, what's terrible for them, what's lethal for them, what is horrible for them, is if this thing goes into effect and nothing bad happens to our country. In other words, what they are admitting is when bad things happen to our country, that is good for us. We actually want bad things to happen to our country because that serves our political interest. It's good for us when bad things happen to the country. When this sequester goes into effect, we want it to be terrible. We want it to be horrible for the United States of America. We want there to be pestilence. We want there to be drought. We want there to be famine all over the fruited plain because that will help our political interests. They're like scavengers. They're like vultures feeding on the carcass of the American economy. So they want it to die so they can eat. I mean, that's how perverse their worldview is. So that's, and to me, it's like watching a really scary movie. And, all you have to do, if you're in a really scary movie and you're getting really uptight and you're getting tense and your stomach is in knots, all you got to do is step back and remind yourself that this is all make-believe. You just can picture the set that they have built for this scene. And you picture the guys operating the cameras on the little dollies going up and down. And you picture the guy holding the lights or setting up the lights. And you picture the guy holding the sound boom. And all of that, just that fear just dissipates. It's gone. I mean, it kind of takes the fun away, but it's poof because you realize it's all hype. It's all make-believe. It's all imaginary. And that's exactly what's going on with this sequester. All this fear, this scaremongering, it's imaginary. There's nothing to it. And if you step back and realize that the federal government's going to spend more next year than they spent last year, the Department of Transportation is going to spend more next year than they spent last year, that the reduction in the education budget of Washington, D.C. is 0.006%, then all of that, it just evaporates. Poof. It's just imaginary. It's just a scary movie without a convincing plot. Now, here is clip number 7. Here's Ron Johnson talking about the consequences for John Boehner if Boehner case. Remember, because President Obama and his acolytes are talking about a balanced approach, which means tax increases. We got to raise taxes on the American people. John Boehner just caved already. He went against us. He went against his own party. Remember, 2/3 of the Republicans in the House of Representatives voted against the fiscal cliff bill. He went against his own party. He governed against the interest not only of America, but against the interest of his own party. I mean, it's unconscionable what John Boehner did. They had a rule called the Denny Hastert rule. It's a good rule if you're in charge. I mean, if you've been elected to office and you've been given political authority, then criminally use it. And the Denny Hastert rule, as long as Republicans have a majority in Congress, House of Representatives, as long as I'm Speaker, we are not going to bring a single solitary bill to the floor of the House that does not have majority support in the Republican caucus. In other words, Denny Hastert is saying, if my own people don't support this thing, I'm not going to bring it up for vote. I'm going to kill it dead. I'm going to strangle it in the cradle. And John Boehner went against that. He brought a bill to the floor that could only pass because it had overwhelming Democrat support, and John Boehner did that. A Republican did that. I mean, that's just, I start thinking about that, and, my blood pressure starts shooting to the top of my head. And Obama is putting pressure on Boehner to do the same thing. We got to have more tax increases. Boehner just raised our taxes by $620 billion. And the Republicans have been saying, look, we're done with tax increases. Well, President Obama is not done with tax increases. Howard Dean saying we're going after the middle class next. And here's Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin. By the way, he got 100% rating from the Club for Growth. This is one of the good guys. Rand Paul got 100%. Mike Lee from the state of Utah got 100%. Jim DeMint who's now the head of Heritage Foundation. He got 100% from the Club for Growth. So this guy just doesn't talk the talk. This guy walks the walk, 100% record on fiscal conservatism. And he said this about John Boehner if he caves this time.
Conservatives are now warning if he caves again, he will get pushed out.
I don't quite honestly believe that Speaker Boehner would be Speaker if that happens. I think he would lose the speakership.
So, and Boehner's got to know that. He pushed the envelope, I think, as far as he can. He just simply, for his own political survival, cannot afford to cave again. Now, let's grab the Juan Williams clip, number 1, Rob, if we can. And if you doubt Juan Williams, just ask Tim Tebow and Robert Jeffress about what the media can do to you if you disagree with them. Let's listen.
I always thought that it was the Archie Bunkers of the world, the right-wingers of the world, who were more resistant, more closed-minded about hearing the other side, about allowing me to say, well, wait, hold on, I don't think that's right. Let me tell you what I think. But in fact, what I've learned is, in a very painful way, and I can open the shirt and show you the scars and the knife wounds, is that it's big media institutions who are identifiably more liberal to left-leaning who will shut you down, stab you, and kill you, fire you, if they perceive that you are not telling the story in the way they want it told.
So that's Juan Williams. I mean, that's an amazing thing. This guy's a card-carrying Democrat, card-carrying liberal. And he's saying there, this is a phenomenal. In fact, we're going to play that again, Rob, after the break. He's saying something that we've talked about here on Focal Point virtually every day, that the media is absolutely hopelessly, helplessly biased against Judeo-Christian values, against the values of the Founding Fathers, against the very values on which this country was built. And if you disagree with their agenda, these are Juan Williams' words, they will shut you down, they will stab you, they will kill you, and then they will fire you. And Juan Williams is saying, look, I got the scars to prove it. And if you doubt this, just ask Robert Jeffress and Tim Tebow what the media will do if you disagree with their agenda. They're not interested in dialogue. They're not interested in debate. What they want to do is they want to shut us down. They want to stab us. They want to kill us. And then they want to fire us. Back in 2.